Rock
Ladies
and
and
roll.
gents, let's get into tonight's review of Pocket Monsters 2019. This is the episode everybody has been anticipating for. Well, kinda. It's part two, basically, we should say. So it's the
Yeah.
continuation of where we last left off our adventures in the world of Pokemon 2019, where it was the first half of the fight between Ash and B. So now we're now in the second episode of this fight, titled, if I recall correctly, Mega Evolution versus Kyodaimax. Let me briefly read the summary of this one, and then we'll get into the review. So, Satoshi and Saito are fighting a seesaw battle, and as neither of them yield an inch, they both eventually end up with one Pokemon left. Satoshi's Lucario and Saito's Kairiki, aka the Machamp. Saito Kyodaimax's Kairiki, and Satoshi faces her with his Mega Evolved Lucario. Which of them will the goddess of victory smile upon? Alright then, so let's get into the review. Let me begin. I'm gonna say right now, let's start talking about some of the positives. And honestly, the biggest praise I can give about this episode, in my wholehearted opinion, the animation in this episode was what carried this fight, bro. I'm gonna say that right now. The animation carried everything in terms of enjoyment for this episode, bro. You can say the same for music as well, but music is, of course, music. At the end of the day, most of the Pokemon music is always great, so there's not really much of a high stake for that part there. We all knew it was gonna be that way. So, the animation in this episode, I believe, was incredible, especially for Surfetch. There are some moments in that fight with Surfetch that I really appreciate, like he did the Captain America toss with that shield and actually lunging it towards the Holucha, or straight up saying, yo, and let me get a boost in air real quick. So he slams the goddamn leak into the ground and uses that as a way to lift himself upward into the sky and dive down towards the Holucha. You cannot tell me that shit was not incredible. Like, I love the animation in that sequence. That was honestly really fantastic. Secondly, the other bit that I also enjoyed has to also be at the finale of the episode, specifically with the Lucario and Ash bit, where they do the Force Palm move together, which then converts into something else, but we don't care about that part right now. It's the animation leading up to the fight. So that sequence of event I thought was really cool. I love the animation there, the aura shaping into the fist and all that between both Satoshi and Lucario. 10 out of 10 in terms of animation for that. Iwane, you really killed it. You nailed it. You went nuts in this episode. Both Masaki Iwane and Izumi Shimura were the two that worked on this episode in terms of animation director. In my opinion, they really carried this fight throughout. Music, once again, I thought was also really great. Other sequences of events that I can also give praise to was the new Thunderbolt animation we got from Pikachu in this fight as well. Kind of gave me a reminiscent vibe from the Volcanion movie, where Pikachu used Thunderbolt against like all the Megas. Like, I kind of got that vibe in this animation sequence as well, where like the camera kind of just circles around Pikachu using the Thunderbolt on Holucha. Kind of got that vibe through that. So I really enjoyed that bit. So yeah, just like noteworthy moments. And then of course, how can one not talk about the fact that we also got to see Lucario, specifically Mega Lucario, at that run and leap forward, do some Shadow of the Colossus shit for like a brief minute, where it goes upwards towards the Machamp and hits it in the face. I thought that was actually pretty cool. So let me take that out of the way now. The positives. Like I stated, I really enjoyed the animation. I think that was one of the best part about it. The other thing I also enjoyed, it was a brief moment, but I really did appreciate it, was the ending of the episode, where Saito finally sees and acknowledges Ash, not as a trainer with Lucario, but now as simply Ash. And I thought that was actually a nice touch to kind of wrap things up between these two characters. For now. Whether they'll bring this character back or not, we don't know. We could get journeys, we could not get journeys. It's all up to whether or not the series will actually do something with B moving forward. But of course, we also have other Sword and Shield characters we might want to put some more attention to later down the road. So we'll take a I guess, an IOU on that regards over there. We'll see what happens in the future. But yeah, in regards to the B and Satoshi finale, within the little fist bump they gave, the Pokemon episode finally coming to a close, with Ash looking forward, noticing that he has Leon, Raihan, Lance, which I'm still surprised is still around, and Cynthia. Yeah, that's how the episode ended. So overall, what more can I say when it comes to the animation and the interaction at the end? Then job well done on that bit. Now let's get into the actual fight at hand, because I'm gonna be real with you all right now. You can have the cleanest animation in history, for all I know, but if the choreography or just straight up the way the fight is handled is poor, very poor at that, it's not gonna leave a good impression on me. Bro, I'm gonna be real with you. The first half of this episode was absolute trash. I'm gonna be real with you. That first half of this episode was just straight up horrible, in my opinion. That was a sloppy mess, especially with how fast they tried to go through all of that. No, thank you, bro. Like, okay, I will give praise on one bit. They did get the Lucario out as quick as possible. I stated in the last review that I was thinking it was kind of stupid to kind of have Lucario still maintained in the next episode at the beginning of the fight, but they took care of that shit immediately and called Lucario back, and then Sirfetch'd came into the field. When Sirfetch'd came into the field, however, that's where I feel the issues began to arise, because the episode, especially when you start taking note about like what happened within these two episodes and try to apply it to the Pokemon, it really makes you kind of mad about how much disrespect they gave certain Mons in this fight. So let's talk about Sirfetch'd. Sirfetch'd, got absolutely destroyed in this episode. I think it was so, I don't know if disrespectful is the right word, but I was absolutely pissed off by the fact that Sirfetch'd got his ass knocked out by the same Mon, by the way, just to remind people, by the same Mon that knocked him out in the original fight that they had back then in the earlier episodes of Journeys. That same Hawlucha that we saw was that same one that kicked his ass in this episode as well. Meaning that we'll never see a proper conclusion for Sirfetch'd on that regards, because apparently Lucario has two rivals in this goddamn fight. The recently acquired one that he just made, and then the one that he's had since the beginning of this whole introduction between Ash and B, which is the Graplock. So we'll talk more about that later. In my opinion, Sirfetch'd was just absolutely destroyed by one hit, by the way. Let's be clear. He did get to use his shield to block the attacks out of the Machamp, but Sirfetch'd was easily able to kind of bounce back on that and hit Machamp in the center, allowing the Pokemon to return to then fight against Hawlucha. And then it gets his ass demolished by a God the Bird, as you guys call it. So here's where the thing begins to really boil me so much. Why is it that the Pokemon was able to be taken out with such a simple hit like that, when you put that alongside a Lucario in between both episodes, including a G-Max move, was able to eat all of that shit up? But the Sirfetch'd only had to just get hit once, which, by the way, he appeared in this episode. He didn't appear beforehand. Let's just reiterate. He showed up in this fight, in this episode. Why did he get his ass beat once in this one, but Lucario is able to eat all that shit up from all of the beatdown that it got from both respective episodes? There's a sense of one of those issues where it's like, you can make something believable and then you just straight up ruin that believability by just making it to the point of just get over with already, you know? So Lucario just eating all this shit up while Sirfetch'd out here just being like, nah, I'm gonna get my ass beat by one single God the Bird. So yeah, kind of sucks on that part there. So unfortunately, Sirfetch'd took the L. Pikachu, for some reason, needs to get a win, I guess, because apparently we can't make this thing lose no more. So Pikachu got himself a W against the Hawlucha. Did get his ass beat by the Graplock, though. And yeah, immediately after that, let's get into the rival now between Lucario and the Graplock. I love and I hate how Ash was like, okay, your rival's here, let's just take him out with one hit. And when you hear that at first, you're like, what the fuck do you mean by that? One hit? Like that shit's ever gonna happen. Oh shit. And yeah, so we kid you not, literally the episode shows you Lucario was like, listen, you might be the rival I got since the very beginning, but I got bigger fish to fry apparently. So I'm gonna just beat your ass with one single aura sphere and just call an end to that rivalry by one single hit. Because that wasn't the big thing everybody was waiting for. It was the Machamp in hand. And so the Graplock got his ass beat. So that first half of the episode, to me, in my honest opinion, was very sloppy. Just, I did not find much enjoyment out of that, especially when taking into consideration how much Halucha took a beatdown, and yet you're telling me that all these other mons just can go out like that. It's just kind of, I don't know, very weird to me in terms of just storytelling for those mons. So that's all I gotta say on that bit. Now, the Machamp and Lucario bit, I will say, was the better half of the episode. I really enjoyed how they tried, and I repeat that, how they attempted to try to replicate the actual mechanic of Gigantamaxing by limiting it to just 3 moves, because once it uses those 3 moves, that's when it shrinks back down, of course. I did like that attempt in using that in this fight. So we got to see Machamp attack back, forward, all that jab, and then we get to the Lucario bit here. I've joked about Off-Screen Land. We've all done our jokes about Off-Screen Land, but never did I think we would ever get to see the day when Off-Screen Land would legitimately become a canon thing to the storyline. Especially when you start taking into considerations that this series is supposed to take elements from past generations and incorporate it into this storyline. The Megastone just suddenly spawning from the skies above and just happening to just be in front of Lucario to Mega Evolve. I would not find this an issue whatsoever, because I didn't find this an issue with Sun and Moon. Let that be clear. With Sun and Moon, they did that same stunt as well with both the Gyarados and the Steelix as well. They've done this before, so why am I criticizing it now? What's the difference between the Sun and Moon one and the Journeys one? Just to kind of let people get a clear understanding where I'm going at with this. I didn't have an issue with the Sun and Moon one because X and Y wasn't involved. When they took the elements of X and Y out of the storyline and just used the Sun and Moon storyline and did their own things their way, because that's their show. But Journeys is bringing elements from all generations into this story. And when you bring a character back that incorporates and still uses, by the way, that cool little thing that Lucario has attached to him as a body part for the Megastone, you would only hope that, maybe Ash's Lucario can do that same thing as well. Maybe instead of like having it attached to the arm or something, maybe they'll have it like an earring piece for the Lucario, or some other like scarf or something, some kind of an attachment to bring back that element from X and Y, that cool feature from X and Y that was only exclusively in the anime, by having that in Ash's team, because that would be a cool little feature for the Pokemon, since we've had it before in the past. Sceptile with the nice little twig, what else was there? The Crocodile with the shades, the Squirtle with the shades. I mean, we've had Pokemon in the past who've brought accessories with them, so it's no surprise that we would hope to see that something like simple as that, as a simple accessory, to also be applied to Lucario too, to make it feel distinct as well, It's not any Lucario, it's Ash's Lucario. Let's try to give it a little bit more extra pizzazz. No, we're just gonna get the stone to spawn in midair, and then just happen to float in front of Lucario's face, because it can apparently do that, I guess, that some other Pokemon can't. I really don't like that, especially when it's glaringly obvious that the X and Y stuff is being brought into the storyline. So yeah. And then the fight at hand, it was a fight. So yeah, not much more I can really say on the fight. I really, like I stated before, I like the elements of the whole Shadow of the Colossus thing with the Lucario. I like seeing how Lucario and the Machamp were fighting back and forth. It felt really good. And then the big finale, when it began to learn the new move and use it to beat the Machamp, and thus ending the fight as a whole. Like I stated, I didn't enjoy the first half as much. I found the second half to be okay. Thus wrapping this episode up as a whole, and leaving me with mixed emotions overall. It felt like it wanted to do so much, yet accomplishes, in my opinion, very little when it comes to paying respect to the series where these mechanics come from, and also straight up, I guess, being very rushed in certain parts of the fight, bro. It did make me laugh, but I didn't laugh with it. I laughed at it. Let that be cleared. That's a key thing I want to point out. So, yeah, overall, my experience with this episode, it really wasn't a fascinating one. It really is one of the worst fights, in my opinion, within Journeys, which isn't really that much to say because I didn't really enjoy much of Journey's fights, to be fair with you. So this is just, unfortunately, another one to add to that collection. Where would I rate it overall? In terms of like an animation and musical aspect, I would really like to say I'll give it a solid 6 in terms of that part. But when we bring into the fight as a whole and bring into like elements that, like the mechanics, the rivalries, all that stuff, where does that lead? Probably at a 4. I'm going to be real with you. And as a whole, for the fight between 2 episodes, I'll give it a 5. So that's my take overall. An episode that really just kind of left me very, very sour throughout. That I really wish that the animation could have carried this entire fight. But ultimately, because certain things had to play out in certain ways, other Pokemon and other battles within this 3v3 fight had to sadly be brushed to the side just to get to the main event. And ultimately that really harmed, I think, what could have been a good 3v3 fight. Especially when you realize just like how cool of a concept Mega Evolution versus Gigantamax is, and ultimately feeling very dissatisfying to me. Let that be clear. This is how I personally feel about this episode. What these others here in this call will say will definitely differ in terms of opinions, but I just want to state this is just how I feel personally. If you enjoyed, disliked the episode, by all means, that's your take. Just I wanted to use this platform as a way to just simply express my take as a whole. So that's all I got to say on that part. Now I pass it on to the next person then. Apologies for going a little long with this one, but I just felt like I had a lot to say. Polly?
Well, and to be honest, before we continue, to be honest, this is really appreciated because you don't normally talk a lot about it, and I'm really appreciated that you actually took the time and broke everything down. So
yeah, I felt like
hats off to you.
Well, to be fair, I'm also doing a 2-parter as well. Now, it gives me more to talk about,
Yeah, it gives you more meat to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so, Polly's next.
Exactly. So, Polly, I will gladly pass this one on to you. I really would like to hear your take on this episode and, of course, your score at the end of it all. So, take it away, buddy.
Okay. I'm going to pull a JPR and do the format as things I like and things, obviously, I didn't like. But I'll skim through the things I like because actually a lot of my opinions are the same as yours. I literally said the animation was incredible, especially the Surfetched part. There was one part where it like spun around and it actually reminded me a lot of the Deku Bakugo fight with when he did that awesome like turn, and like obviously the One for All is like glowing, and when Surfetched Leak was glowing, I don't know. I thought that was really cool. Maybe it's just Hayashi's music. Pikachu tail thingy was cool. That's all I have on that.
What?
You know, the one where Iron Tail's on the floor and then puts it
I mean,
vibrating Pikachu. Got it.
So shut up. Overdrive vibrator. I apologize, Polly. Continue.
So being that I like Machamp and I like that whole line, I obviously thought the Gigantamax Machamp was cool. However, story-wise, I wish the last 2 standing would have been obviously Graplock and Lucario. But I get it, they had to check off the Gigantamax box. So it's kind of like irritating for me because it's like they were the original 2 rivals early on in the series, but again, not a huge problem as much as I have problems with other things. Music, I'm glad they used the Champion Iris, the Sacred Swordsman music for the Mega Evolution part. Again though, I wish they did that Latios, that revamp OST, the one that they did for Misty and Brock when they came back in Sun and Moon and they did their Mega Evolution scenes, which they still can do, but regardless, yay, Miyazaki music. It was It was cool. So that's really the stuff I liked. Now, basically, I see this two-parter as kind of the checkpoint arc to get to the real meat and potatoes, which is obviously Leon. The problem is, I just don't know if I can really call B one of Ash's strongest rivals, and not in terms of like actual strength, but in terms of like writing. Like I do consider her a rival, obviously, but just not as a main rival. Because when I think of Ash's main rivals, besides the strength and power and battling stuff, it's like they're always, for me, it's like there's always some sort of clashing of ideals or like a significant relationship between the two, such as Ash and Gary being childhood friends, or Ash and Sawyer having a mentor-mentee relationship, or obviously Paul and Ash, or even I would go as far as to say Trip and Ash having a clashing of ideals. B is simply just a strong trainer. The battle, to me, was actually decent. I didn't think it was terrible. Like, I enjoyed watching it. My issue is, it's just not going to stick personally with me the way other major rival battles have stuck with me. And it's like, in a sense, we've gotten a bit of build-up with the first B episodes early on, but the problem is they were just so far back at this point that any potential for like that on-your-feet rivalry or that on-your-feet battle, it's just kind of lost its momentum. That's just my opinion. But Polly, you say, you act like every other rival in every other series had better writing than B. I mean, Ursula was introduced late, Barry was introduced late, Trip and Kenny lost in their first rounds, and obviously there were other rivals that were bland as hell. Yes, I know. The key is that there was always something else in those series that compensated for that. It was either a rival who was well written, Ash's Pokémon having lots of screen time and lots of development, great personalities and dynamics with each other, or even just the anticipation of Ash finishing his journey no matter the outcome of the league. There was just always something else that compensated. With Journey's plotlines being all over the place, it's like even B and her Pokemon get lost in the shuffle, which is why I'm just saying, personally for me, the battle was good, it was a battle, but it's just not going to stick with me. Like when I think about the series years later, I may remember the one part where Lucario Mega Evolved, but that's it. It's a shame because it was decent to watch, and it's a shame that B kind of has to be that checkpoint, because Leon is obviously the most important part here. But yeah, that's all I have.
What's the number?
Yeah, what would you give it as a score overall?
I'll give it a 6.2.
A 6
as well, not a 6.2.
Okay, I was gonna ask, is a 6 as a whole for the two-parter or just for this episode? Like, what would you give it as a fight as a whole?
I think, didn't I give the other episode a 7? Or was that? I'm getting
I don't fucking remember.
I don't know. I like the previous one better.
I like the previous fight episode.
Because that's the thing, it's like it built up, and then it just kind of like, oh, okay. So last week is 7, this week is 6.
Alright, so it'd be like a 6.5 overall for the fight. Yeah, alright. Perfect then. So anything else to add, Polly, or should we pass this on to the next?
We'll pass the baton on to T the Gothery.
Alright then, Tyrone. I'll pass it on to you, buddy. Let's hear your take on this episode as a whole and what you think of it.
God, I've had to talk about this episode more times than the parters that it is. Fuck. Between the reaction and the Master 8 podcast and this, I've talked about this episode 3 fucking times already. God damn it!
Does it change?
God fucking damn it! Well, Polly actually pointed out something that I didn't even talk about, and I applaud her for it. What is B's backstory? She's just this mean girl.
Excuse you. She's a prodigy.
Oh, she's a prodigy that likes chocolate. Ooh, I'm sorry. Like the 10 out of 10, I guess. I don't fucking know, but no, seriously. So here we go. Okay. Obviously, I feel like the video that I made recently, Anime Logic versus Video Game Logic, that was perfectly timed. I just wanted to make a video on Anime Logic versus Video Game Logic and Pokemon based off the events of the Volkner fight, but it seems to fit snug perfectly here. So it's fine. It works still. I'm gonna talk about certain aspects because I've talked about this episode basically to death. So obviously the battle itself to me is a mess. To me, it's a virtual mess. Battles tell stories, and this one told basically the worst story because it didn't know whether or not it wanted to focus on Lucario's rivalry with Graplock and B, or this newcomer Machamp and its ability to Gigantamax, which is the official Gen 8 power-up. So Lucario's gotta fight it, right? He's gotta take on the big new gimmick mon. So it feels very disingenuous. I don't know Machamp enough to care about whether or not it can do this. I didn't even see it as like a Machop at first or a Machoke. So there's no reason for me to even remotely care about Machamp. And apparently the show doesn't give a shit about him either because his strongest ultimate attack, the big attack, the signature move that this thing has, the reason why this thing even has a Gigantamax in the first place, it's just blocked. Yeah, no tactical moves, no way to get around it. Lucario just blocks it. Remember, Ash said in the Graplock fight, we can't afford to let this last any longer. We have to knock this out in one hit, which, who the fuck decided Ash was the one in charge of that? Who the fuck was like, yeah, definitely, Graplock's only been hit by Quick Attack? Go ahead, Ash, tell Graplock how much fucking health it's got. Like, the fuck, who gave Ash permission to be like, yeah, we can take this out in one hit? Like, that's not up to you, motherfucker. That's up to Graplock and B. Like, I'm sure that Graplock is way more resilient in the fight to last a lot longer than just that one pathetic ass hit. It's the rival fight between Graplock and Lucario. Now, one of the worst things you can do when you're world building fiction, when you're world building a fiction, you can use suspension of disbelief. You can use it in very pinch moments as a one-off. Most people refer to them sometimes as plot armor, main character privilege, Deus Ex Machina. We've made the jokes. They've all been said. All of them have been said. Hell, the fact that Ash was able to use Z moves twice in his fight with Kukui was shown because the Tapus were able to pull some Deus Ex bullshit so that Ash can do it. Ash even having the Z move 1 million Thunderbolt is an anime Deus Ex Machina bullshit ass pull within itself, but we accept it because at least it was earned earlier in the show, so we know it exists. Trying to convince me that this Lucario can fucking just decide when it's knocked out and be able to one-shot whenever it feels like it needs to detaches your audience from the story. And you cannot convince me of this otherwise. Trying to convince your audience that the antagonist of this particular climax of an arc can easily be wiped out with a simple one hit is never gonna flow with your audience. Ever. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. I don't care if you make as many excuses as you want. This is unacceptable. And then to top it off, Lucario literally blocks the strongest attack that B has. And no one explains it. There's nothing behind it. There's no outing to this either. At least in other situations when Ash is faced with a big, huge attack, at least there's some explanation how he's able to get around it or some obstacle that he's able to overcome. That's the whole point of Pokemon battles. It's a test to see if Ash can deal with the situation and get around it. You could have, and I said this in my reaction video, you could have even had Lucario get hit by the Gigantamax move, and when everyone thinks, oh, Lucario got hit, it fades away. Why is it fading away? Oh, it hit a double team, not the real one. And the real one's in the air and then uses a giant aura spear because he gathered up enough power or some shit while he was in the air. And then hit Machamp in the face in a cool little Attack on Titan situation. And it comes down and then Gigantamaxes or something, goes back to normal. That's a lot better than making me believe that it can just block the move. Strongest attack in this battle, and Lucario blocks it. Yeah, bullshit. Lucario's already been getting the snot kicked out of it from part 1 of the fight. And I know what you're thinking. Why are you analyzing every last attack in the game? Because I have an attack in the show. Because I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, you're looking into every last single hit in the show. At that point, it looks like you're nitpicking. Not exactly. Only because when you're doing a fight, when you're choreographing a fight in a story, you're telling a second part of a story. You're telling a part of the story that has no language. There is no Japanese. There is no English. There's only motion. I mean, that and the trainer's yelling what the fuck to do. But when you watch a battle and you see the struggle, you can these type of things will determine the impact in which the story is taking place. I remember, and this is going into our free time a little bit, I remember when KG, Terrell, and I watched the Batman versus Robin fight, or whatever Robin decided to call himself at that point. And Terrell points out his favorite part in the fight is that once Batman gets the upper hand, Robin never lands a hit on him. The reason he likes this is because he already knows that a story is being told. The fight is being turned around. It's very clear the advantage point belongs to a character. Hits matter. Attacks matter. They allow us to be conjoined into the story and realize exactly what is taking place in the confines of the fight. These are the things that allow us to sit and watch the struggle. It's the reason why Pokemon trainers even battle in the first place. If not, they'd all be like the Best Wishes Skyla fight where Skyla just assumes who's gonna win and the match would be over. But nobody would watch that because it'd be fucking boring. And nobody would want to put up with it. Fights would be over in a second because there'd be no point in actually showing them. And fights can't be like they are in the video game because those are calculated numbers based on statistics. But here, we're dealing with actual struggle. It's very believable that, yes, a Pokemon can toughen out a certain amount of hits, but it's not believable that it can toughen out a certain amount of hits to the point where it basically should be knocked out. And then when it comes down to the biggest hit in the entire story, the big climax attack, it can just simply block it. Fuck you, Journeys. There's no way I'm gonna sit here and accept that. I'm not even gonna talk about Surf Edge because you guys have already pretty much summed that up. And look, if Journeys doesn't give a damn, I don't give a damn. So I'm not even gonna give it that. Pikachu using that vibrating thing, I talked about that before. It was kind of weird. And I said it was weird only because normally when Ash pulls off weird tactics, at least we get to either A, see some on-screen training of him doing that, or B, he talked about it in passing, and it came into fruition. The off-screen example I can think of is Electric Shock Showdown, where Brock says, well, I think there's a way we can probably beat the Raichu, which means they're obviously cooking something up, so whatever Ash does on-screen that's crazy and new to the audience can at least imply that Brock and Ash worked on the strategy together. An on-screen example I can think of is X and Y when Froakie jumps on the little pieces of trash or whatever during the whirlpool and is able to make the rock climb tomb, which we see later in Grant's fight, which Pikachu then turns into Draco Meteor Tomb. You can see an on-screen example of this happening, and you can see the actions being set in stone. That means when in the fight actually happens, these tactics are believable because you can actually see them on screen. The payoff is what we get. And that is something that you always have to make sure you put in your fiction. When you're writing a shonen, any shonen, the worst thing you can do is say that this character wins simply because fuck it. It deletes the whole conflict. It separates the audience from its level of disbelief, and it completely deletes struggle. The reason that shonens or any fight in general is made is because you want to see the struggle of something. If Captain Ahab just fucking threw a spear at Moby Dick and it just died, and the book was only 2 pages long, nobody would fucking read it. So in the exact same vein, conflict needs to be set. It's how a narrative is set in stone. It's how you're able to take into account, oh, this is great because I got to see the struggle from start to finish. And with that being said, this wasn't a good fight at all. This was a terrible fight. none, like, this is pretty much the exact same problem as Volkner, increased to about ×4. And with that being said, I gave the last episode like a 4, and this is the climax of the fight. So its expectations to me are higher, which means this gets a 3. So overall, a 3.5.
Okay, then. Anything else you'd like to add, Tyrone?
I mean, other than that, I'm guessing since B is defeated, Ash is gonna face like the 4 of the Master 8, which 4 will still be revealed later, and that's what we gotta look to.
Mm-hmm.
This tournament has been a mess through and through, and I feel like this was their quick way of trying to get Lucario up to a level that can take on a Gigantamax. But again, this is disingenuous just to Machamp himself, because one, this is our first real-time seeing Machamp, was in these 2 episodes, and Machamp's got the gimmick, which is the Gigantamax. So at this point, the show's not even focused on its own mechanics, because the Gigantamax Pokemon that Ash fought in a legit battle in the World Tournament got its ass whooped by a Pokemon who's using a gimmick that isn't even used anymore. So now we got this situation where, because Ash can't afford to lose, he's just going through stuff regardless of whether or not it's relevant, or regardless of whether or not it's pivotal to me believing the conflict. But I don't want to go back around on the same thing, so I'm just gonna basically end it here and hand it to Kuro.
I forgot to just add quickly one thing. It's also frustrating because we intentionally got those Wickstrom episodes to develop. I keep wanting to say
Surfetch, yeah.
Surfetch. So having Lucario come in as like the big star is kind of just not fair to me, because it's like we got all that time for Surfetch, but for what? For nothing.
I think it would have been better off because like I mentioned before, Surfetch initially kind of had a rivalry with Hawlucha. Not really, but it had fought against Hawlucha at the beginning of their debut.
Yeah.
And lost to it. So this would have been a perfect opportunity.
I'm going to point it out on my part
Yeah.
of the review.
Don't worry about that. Let me just finish this up and I'll pass it on to you, buddy. And I was
Sure
going to
thing.
say, like, it just aggravates me because it's like, apparently, like I stated before, Lucario seems to have 2 rivals in this episode, implying that somebody's going to have to take an L. Unfortunately, that meant that the first one had to go to Surfetch. And since you're not Pikachu and you're not Lucario or Dragonite, your ass out here gonna get destroyed, and it sadly did. And also, to add to that thing that Tyrone stated about the believability, it just pisses me off even more when you take note into how Lucario took all these beatdowns, and then Surfetch just took one,
Yeah.
and then it just went poof, you know?
Yeah.
So, alright, I apologize on that. Kuro, now this is gonna be your turn, buddy. I'd like to hear what you
Alright.
take on this episode, as well as your rating on it, so take it away, buddy.
Alright, so let me just drink my water first.
Remember, chat, as well, stay
Yeah.
hydrated.
Okay, so never in my life did I believe that a part of a trilogy, quote unquote, could downrank the previous 2. Because I gave an 8 out of 10 to the other 2 episodes. More for details and references because of the Mega Island, and for a solid foundation and premise that the first part of this, with all the Pokemon, eating together and Karina with B and whatever more. This episode, it downranks the other 2, somehow, personally, to the same rank that I actually gave this one, a 6. 6 out of 10 for all of these 3 episodes. They are decent at best. But let me start with the positives first. So, animation music, like all of you said, it was brilliant. When Surfetch used the brutal swing to hit the shield, oh my god, that was amazing. Okay, you cannot deny that, that looked cool. Pikachu using the quick attack on the ground to make that lightning veil, that looked cool. It kind of makes me wonder when he's going to get extreme speed, but the battle looked cool. However, the rule of cool doesn't save a narrative. Good animation doesn't save poor writing. It's not bad, but it's extremely poor. Because look, it's not even the issue of Lucario being up, to his rivals in such a short amount of time, because Ash's Pokemon did this prior, and even non-Ash's Pokemon did this prior as well. The issue here is, why is Lucario the only one to get privilege out of off-screen growth? Why can't Surfetch get that? Or even Gengar? Why specifically Lucario? That is when you ruin the believability, because Sinnoh remakes, and he's the ace, he hatched from an egg, he has a strong bond. The more you reinforce that message, the less I believe it. And this episode, people like to bitch and shit on Cameron because, Lucario regained the HP bar when he evolved against Snivy. Apparently Ash's has 4 HP bars. The base, the recall, the Mega Evolution, and Surfetch's. He got hit 13 times. And he doesn't lose. Why? Because it's the cool Pokemon. The same reason why he didn't lose against Voltner. He tied. He's too cool to lose. That's bullshit. Now, in terms of Pikachu, we come to this situation that everything after Tapu Koko, it needs to be as grandiose, but they cannot realistically make it, right? And because Olucha and Graplocked have the Limber ability, Pikachu cannot paralyze it. Then again, we don't see Static for 9 years. And Force Palm cannot even have the effect of paralysis either. However, this episode, they make Surfetch lose to Olucha a second time, with no closure or redemption or riddance whatsoever. The same applies for Pikachu as well. He lost to Graplocked another second time. And nothing will come of it. This episode was, the whole team will get dropped for the sake of Lucario. Heck, even Go points out, thought he was going with Dragonite. Well, if he went with Dragonite, 3 Hurricanes would have defeated B. No more, no less. And people online, oh my gosh, people online. Oh, but the birds were rivals. No, they weren't. You made the rivalry in your heads. Just because they battled once, it doesn't mean they are rivals. Ash's Charizard and Gary's Blastoise are a good example of it. They aren't rivals, their trainers are. So, let me see what I have in my notes more. Okay, so, in terms of Olucha and Surfetch, realistically speaking, I wanted for them to tie, because that way the Surfetch mindset would be something very, very simple. Alright, I am now on par with the dude who priorly defeated me. That is good, but that's not enough. I need to train more. Because that way, it can cue a training montage or an episode for Meteor Assault. Makes sense. The same thing with Lucario and Graplocked. The rivalry is so forced that the tie 1 year ago, it kinda, makes all of that. Lucario doesn't need to win against Graplocked to prove himself to Graplocked. Because defeating G-Max Machamp, the true ace, already gives Lucario a proxy win on Graplocked. Pikachu should have defeated Graplocked to revenge, quote unquote, and then deal enough damage to Machamp for Lucario's win to be, more believable. Heck, you were mentioning this, Tyrone, about, he blocked the G-Max move because it was a clone, right? It was a shadow clone from Double Team. I believed in that when I was watching the episode. And then, when I watched the episode, Surfetch doesn't even use Detect. It completely undermines the whole Wigstrom training to begin with. Again, the Mega Evolution sequence was cool, Lucario showing all of that aura energy because Mega Lucario has adaptability. That looked cool. Using Force Palm on Bullet Punch and absorbing the Steel energy to make it Steel Beam, that was nice. I like that. It's a great nod to how you actually can learn the move in the Sword and Shield games after you become a champion. And Ash is already won, so kudos to the detail. But the details don't make, the entirety of the arc or the rivalry. Because, yeah, Lucario now has had its moment to shine. at the cost of many, of course. What now? What next? For both Mega Lucario and even B, right? I'm left with more questions than answers with this arc. The same can go with the Winter Special trailer, but that's, another topic. But yeah, like, Ash, he talked no jutsu Lucario will finish this in one blow, and so they did. Like, excuse me? And when he does the quick attack thing, oh, I like to invent this shit on the fly, and I'm like, no, you don't. You never invent shit on. Now that is out of character. Like,
I also thought that too.
You don't invent this shit on the fly. You learned Iron Tail.
Thunder Armor.
Thunder Armor wasn't invented on the fly.
Yeah, like Ash knew Swellow's, natural resistance to electric attack.
Yeah, let's talk about Thunder Armor. Before Thunder Armor happens, Ash looks at the sky. You notices the storm clouds and goes, "Ah!" That at that point already gives us
I'm talking
realm
about
of
I'm talking about the randomness, by the way, not.
I know, but no. There's even no randomness in that. Weirdly enough, Thunder Armor, the most obscure shit in Pokemon, at least has build up. Because Ash looks at the sky and goes, "Ah!" That one moment right there gives us an idea that the move can be done, or at least if it is done, for as ridiculous as it is, at least there's a reference point.
There's
we
believability.
Don't get any of that.
There is believability. And now with Journeys, like, it feels like we reach it feels like Lucario, it's too early, it's too rushed, it peaked midway to the series, and again, we don't know the future of the series, so it's kind of redundant and to even point that out, right? But this entire battle, like, decent at best. That's why 6 out of 10. I don't think I have anything much else to say. Like, it looked cool, and it's just that it looked cool.
But looking cool isn't the same as being cool.
I didn't even use that as a factor to judge this fight. And my favorite series is the one where all the fights look cool.
Yeah, like Machamp, like Gigantamaxing, but still having, the power up for critical hit ratio and, the focus energy to, boost attack. It's basically Pokémon Machamp, but without the red glow.
Yeah, like I said, it looked really cool when I saw that. I was like, oh shit, that's Pokemon Machamp right there.
But they didn't do anything with it.
No, that was in the moment when I was reacting.
Yeah, exactly. It's more like these entire battles as of lately. It's just, everyone, like, it's the same journey cycle. It's not even the Trouble Training Triumph. It's the 1 month of hype, weekend of controversy, and days for people to forget. Move on, carry on. And with Lucario, is this all that Lucario is going to have? Being cool just for the sake of it? Because Lucario as a Pokemon in the Pokemon anime, it's not even that special. Ash is like the 12th or 10th to 12th or something. As a Mega Lucario, he's the 3rd. There's nothing special to it. Then again, there is nothing that needs to be special about an Ash Pokemon in terms of battle to be great. It's just, his time in the sun, it feels like it's over. Then again, they didn't, bothered enough for me to care prior, so why should I now, right?
Mm-hmm. Alright then. Thank you, Carl, for giving your... You said 6, correct?
6.
Alright.
For all three. For all three.
So you're counting that one episode too. Alright then. So now, TSS, we gladly leave it with you at the end, buddy.
Thank you.
Take it away. So let's hear your take as well as your ranking of the episode as a whole.
Go for it.
Okay, so here we go. 2-part review coming here. So let's start with part 1. Let me just clear the air here. I totally agree with you guys for Sirfetch'd being completely outmatched. I thought that was completely. I thought that wasn't handled very well. But then I was reminded of a statement that Karina said in the last episode, saying that she is better than she was yesterday, and she's working harder towards it, training harder in the future as well. Also, I still stand by my statements saying that they wouldn't have shown all 6 Pokemon on each side if there wasn't going to be a 6v6 coming soon in the future. So I still hold out for that. So let's go to quickly finish up part 1 here. So first, let's go break things down. Good thing that they. By the way, I think the second animation director was there only because they reused the part of the animation from the previous episode. Iwane did this himself the rest of the way. So let's get that cleared out. First of all, they usually do that. That's why sometimes you see like 9 animation directors in the same episode, or maybe 4 of them, because they use clips that are previously used for those episodes to reuse the clips. Credit. Just giving credit, correct. So let's begin. First of all, let's get to I believe it was the, let's see, it was what was it? No, it wasn't Machamp first. It was see, my brain is so focused on part 2 that I forgot part 1. So let's just get the shit out of the way, right? So the Surfetch shit, yeah, really cool. The vaulting, as everybody said, it was really cool to look at. The shield toss was pretty fucking cool too. Again, the moves looking a lot better, like fucking Godbird Sky Attack looked a lot better than it was in the last episode, which I correctly predicted. I didn't like how fast that went down. So Pikachu one-shotting Hawlucha, fine. That's their fucking logic, whatever. That was a whatever exchange. The Graplock one, that was with as Kuro mentioned, the whole quick attack charge thing, that looked really good on paper. And actually get Pikachu getting a loss. That's one of the first time in a while, so it's a good change of pace. And then of course Lucario coming. Lucario is kind of like the beast and overdone, and kind of like godlike. I will mention one thing that hasn't mentioned before. The Dynamax, or the Kyodai Max Evolute, the animation was a lot smoother than it was at the very beginning of this series. They did a lot of great. They obviously learned from their mistakes, and also, as you saw, when the Dynamax Pokemon move, it wasn't as slow and janky as it was even, let's say, 50 episodes ago during the Galar arc. So I give credit where credit is due. Iwane found a way to make it look better in terms of more fluidity. The fight was really intense, but we're going to get into part 2 of this review. And I did like the ending because it was really passionate. But this is where and then of course we get at the end, we get B acknowledging Satoshi, saying that let's fight again, and they completely have a mutual respect for one another. I do like the fact that there's a CG microphone in the booth. I did like that. You think I didn't catch that? Oh, I noticed everything, man. So that was a pretty cool touch. I don't know who made that CG microphone, but that CG microphone in the booth next to Leon, that was something else. Also Leon telling the announcer to be quiet, that was pretty fucking good too. So it comes to part 2, and it actually starts of a few things that I've noticed in the last year plus of this series. We've always mentioned in this series that there's a lot of remixes within Hayashi's music, and I didn't start thinking about that until episode 42, when Leon faced off with a Gigantamax Centiskorch, where you had the remix. And I said at the time, any of the longtime listeners, I told them that I think Masafumi Mima might have access to Hayashi's multitracks, because you wouldn't be able to do that if all you had was just the basic music. So I thought about this, and then about maybe 20 or 30 episodes later, I noticed a piece of Miyazaki music, and I was thinking, It kind of sounds a little bit like flat mixed. It doesn't sound full. So then it got the wheels turning for me. I was like, has the audio mix changed between series? And we're going to get that into part 2. So what I decided to do tonight was I decided to go into full audio analysis mode for 3 episodes. Now, detailing my gear before we begin, and also a disclaimer before we begin, I am not an audio professional. I am using a Scarlett Solo USB sound card device, a USB sound device, with Sony MDR V6 flat response studio monitors. I have used MPC BE at the same volume, and the episodes that I looked at tonight was DP-188, which is the second part of the Satoshi and Shinji fight, SM-143, which was the second part of the Kukui fight, and last week's SM-86. So, I keep saying that, PM 2019-86. So those 3 episodes. And I put my thinking cap on for the very first time ever, and here is a audio analysis between all 3 of those episodes. Also, the other reason why I did it is because all 3 are storyboarded by Yuji Asada. All 3 of them are Masaki Iwane direction. And also, as always, Masafumi Mima has had the sound direction. So this is apples comparison between those 3 episodes in terms of an audio spectrum. Okay. Also, these 3 episodes aired in the HD digital era, so that means that no compression or additional audio the audio is pure, and there's no compression on the audio or normalization. Okay, so let's start with my basic audio analysis of DP-188. DP-188, dialogue and sound effects for the most part are concentrated in the center channel, but some have a slight panning effect. But I found that the music steps on the dialogue, and likewise it steps on the sound effects at times, lessening the impact of some of those sound effects. Now, I'm aware in that episode that Takashi is talking over Satoshi and Shinji while they fight, but I'm not taking that into account. The Miyazaki music used in there is a nice stereo balance for that time frame, and the overall mix is enjoyable to my ears. Okay, next, SM-143. So this is from 2019. So, compared to DP-188, the sound effects and the dialogue mixing has drastically improved, with certain move sound effects being panned in separate channels. But certain Miyazaki tracks have a subdued mix compared to more current ones, which actually is also true for this current series, the 2019 series. But one of the things that stood out like a sore thumb is that on the climax where Galgain and Yahit's dynamic full-frame Z moves and the final revenge strike when Yahit are focused, they're focused on the center channel. So the impacts don't have that booming effect to the audio. So while the sound effects did improve dramatically in 9 years as a more immersive experience, there was just something there. And then we come to this episode. So, for this episode, Hayashi's music, however, is higher fidelity and also has a wider stereo field in compared to Miyazaki's music. And this in turn allows the dialogue to cut through easier. That's why the dialogue is easily heard within the background music rather than the older series. Now, in addition to this, the sound effects are now punchier and more impactful. And some of them are actually heard on both left and right channels as opposed to just the center channel. So you might have a hit where it hits on both sides of both left and right instead of just the center. Now, in addition, the sound effects that are on the center channel are actually amplified to give it more effect. For example, the air swooshing from when Sirfetch'd goes down is an example of a hard sweep from the right center to the left center channel. And the sound effect of when Lucario's arm drops as Graplock is falling is a quick left-right channel booming sound. And at the end, where Satoshi calls out Force Palm and then the Ike, the dialogue fades out from underneath the music and the sound effects, which gives that spot more emotion. So, with that being said, my initial hypothesis was right. They did change the audio mix for this series, and that's what was bothering me. I had it in the back of my mind, why did I get so involved and why did I like this so much? The answer is the audio mix has dramatically improved even from Sun and Moon. So the audio mix for this gets a 10 out of 10. However, though, I will say this. It's the best audio mixing in the Meta series so far, because even going back 11 years, there's a huge difference between everything. So, and with all of that being said, I absolutely enjoyed the episode because of the audio immersion and also the visuals. And for that, I'm going to give the whole thing, this episode, a 9.5. So that means the average score will be 9.4 something. And that is my review. Thank you.
All right. So there you go, ladies and gents. You got our respective review scores overall. Some 6, some 5, some down to a 4, some up to a 9. At the end of the day, let that be clear, ladies and gents. It's all our respective opinions. We just like the show or dislike the show for what it might be. But that's what makes it fun when we all have everything to... when we have everybody here to talk and give our respective opinions on the show. So, hope you guys enjoyed our review on that aspect right there.